What are the positive things on the horizon that you're seeing that you're expecting to come from the quantum revolution?
Well, quantum computers are really good at doing things like natural science type simulations, pharmaceutical simulations. They have great applicability in the medical space and are already being used by some of the major hospital networks to do wonderful things like early cancer detection. And pharmaceuticals are using them to basically trial drugs quickly without ever having to actually create that compound to know what some of the causes and effects might be. Those are all very exciting things. Weather prediction is another one. Space modeling and technology. I know one very near and dear to you.
Yeah.
Has tremendous upside from some of the capabilities of quantum computers. Tremendous at solving complex mathematical problems too, like the Monte Carlo problem or the salesman problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember those. Put
yeah,
those back in school.
indeed,
Yep, I remember
indeed.
those.
So those are all things that quantum computers can do, and financial services are looking at quantum computers to be able to do financial analysis in a different way. All good stuff, all great advancements. Like the unfortunate problem is because, like I said, the quantum computer is good at doing a different way of doing math quickly because of the nature of a qubit, which is sort of the underlying piece that makes the quantum computer as powerful as it is it's also very good at factoring. And if we look at RSA and ECC as two algorithms, they are completely based on factoring prime numbers,
Or the inability to
or
factor
the
that
inability
you can't
today.
do it with classical computers. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is where the problem. That's at the end of the day the absolute technical reason why the problem exists.
Yeah.
What what is the reality, or what reality do you expect for organizations interacting with quantum computers? Do you expect it to be more leasing time on quantum computers or interacting with companies that have access to their own quantum computers, or in a cryptography case, using cryptographic algorithms generated by a quantum computer versus having direct access to their own instance of a quantum computer?
Both. Um,
Yeah, all of the major cloud providers are looking to offer or are already offering quantum time, yeah, through sort of a cloud lease or rental
Mhm.
piece. But there are companies out there that make physical quantum computers that go into your environment, and D-Wave being an example, and there's a
Yep.
few others out there. I think personally the biggest downstream risk. I mean, nation states, as we said earlier, that are investing very heavily to the billions of dollars into the development of quantum computers, are building them for on-premise
Exclusive use.
exclusive use, weaponization, perhaps in some cases.
More often than not.
Um, in other cases, I think the average organization will consume it as a cloud service predominantly. There'll be some exceptions to that, but I think that's the trend that we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of people are renting it right now, who don't have access, and the people who have access mainly are the nation states, right? Aside from the independent companies who want to, make some money while they continue to develop it, they're allowing people to still play around, test out, algorithms that they wrote for quantum. So, the majority of people will be able to, just rent it. The select few will be able to own it.
And quantum computers, for the most part, require very specific environmental thresholds. It's not something you can today just sort of put in your basement and go. The
That'd be cool, though.
power pieces, the cooling pieces, so on and so forth, sort of tend to lean themselves more to organized data centers,
Yeah.
and therefore that sort of cloud, mentality, private cloud or public cloud.
Yeah, and they also take a big toll on like the energy grid too. Like I heard that there was one that was connected and it kind of took down the grid for the local city, right? Because of the amount of power that it draws. And like,
Absolutely.
if you think the AI, so like AI is taking a lot of power right now, quantum computing on top of that is also just going to make that even more. So power is also going to be another interesting constraint in how we're going to get around that in this coming era.
Agreed.
So to that point of implementing hardware, integrating quantum into an organization's environment and making that transition, what are the three main things that you expect organizations are going to be navigating over the next 5 years?
Yeah. I'll take that one if
Yeah,
you don't
go ahead.
mind. So I said this actually at the very beginning. I was like, I'll talk about it later. So not now is the time. So, strategy, discovery, and remediation. So I know me and Chris, we've kind of been talking high level about strategy, and this really just boils down to going through your organization, understanding where the data is at, understanding what your infrastructure is like, what your applications are, and then from there creating a roadmap to not only find out, like discover where the cryptography is at, where the cryptography is specifically at, but also a roadmap to actually getting towards, quantum safety or a roadmap towards remediation. And, these roadmaps are meant to really just fit into your 5 year timeline because most companies have a 5 year roadmap. And the goal would be to like create one of these 5 year roadmaps and just, have it fit in nicely. I say nicely in quotes, but yeah.
And I do think, there are things that people need to be doing today, right? Good example is if you're buying new hardware, talk to your vendors about their plan to support post quantum. And if they don't have a plan or they don't have an implementation, you might want to consider if that's the right path forward. There are actionable things that can be done today to prepare an organization. They're as simple as including something about post quantum on an RFP, for instance,
Yeah.
so that you're not finding yourself in 5 years' time having to replace that hardware prematurely, because you didn't ask the question today. But the strategy is much greater than that. And as I said earlier, it's not a vendor problem. So don't rely on that to be your sole strategy moving forward. But it is something you could do today.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. Like a lot of one of the main questions we get from our clients is how do we deal with the vendors? How do we deal with the ecosystem? Because it's not in their house, like they don't own the code to actually change anything, right? And so how do we go about dealing with them? Well, the first step is you would start by revisiting your contracts, right?
Yep.
Just to make sure that because contracts typically are reviewed or like a 1 year, 2 year basis, typically, maybe a
Yep.
little bit longer. And so start looking at your contract, and if you see like there's no stipulations around like uh, using like the latest or using the most relevant cryptography for security, I would consider opening dialect with that specific vendor or vendors if that's a multiple recurring problem. And then when the next when that contract's up for renewal, add that stipulation and saying, hey, you guys need to use the most secure cryptography that's out there to ensure that our data that we're giving you does not somehow get leaked, and which would indirectly cause us to be liable.
And it's also important people keep in mind that data lives in many different places,
Yeah.
right? Your ecosystem includes your cloud instances. They include what you have on prem. They include mobile devices that people go home with their email on. Part of the reason why it's so important to have that sort of overarching strategic view is so that you capture all of these things. Because in a post quantum world, it only takes one place not being secure, and your data becomes vulnerable. So good example is you secure everything inside of your organization, but you're storing backups up in the cloud with, for instance, RSA instead of
Hmm.
post quantum. That is vulnerable data. You got to think it end to end, back and forth. So
Yeah, and just to like touch on that, like customers ask us like, oh, our data is in like, S3 or it's in like one of AWS's data lakes, right? Is it
mhm,
secure? So it inherently being in like the S3 or the data lake is okay, right? Because that's using a different type of encryption. Sorry, a little technical. It's what we call data at rest. It's data that isn't, moving around, right? Going from like one endpoint to
mhm,
another, right? Going from one end to another. So that's using a different type of encryption, and that encryption is safe from post quantum, assuming it's of the correct key bit. And NIST actually recommends it to be 256 bits,
yep,
which is the minimum bit that we would recommend companies to make sure the data is at. And like Chris was talking about, it's more of how the data it's how the data gets to the S3 bucket, right? It's the data in transit, the data that's moving that was what
absolutely.
we're concerned about because that is what uses the vulnerable cryptography of called asymmetric cryptography, the
Yep,
RSA, the ECC.
yep.
And then like if I were to touch a little bit more, so I know we talked a lot about like strategy and like talking about ecosystem, like the discovery and remediation aspect side of things. So like discovery, this is just trying to understand where the cryptography lives. And there are multiple different ways that you can go about doing this. A lot of customers that we're seeing are wanting to be are coming to us being like, hey, we want to find this cryptography. How can we use our existing tooling? Customers
Yep.
don't want another agent.
Nope.
They on their systems, like, they already have plenty of agents on there, which already slows down computers. I imagine their IT does get a ton of complaints about, my computer is powered by a hamster,
Yep.
what's up with this? And that's probably just due to a lot of the agents that are running. And so we try to help clients figure out how to use their existing technology, right, or their existing tooling. But that existing tooling doesn't cover, doesn't give like a full perspective. There are gaps that need to be filled, and like there are specific, discovery tools out there, like quantum scanning tools that help do that.
Yep.
Like I know, Chris, your company just recently acquired a company called InfoSec Global,
We
and
did.
that is a specific discovery platform to help with that.
Yep.
And so there are others out there, like Sandbox AQ, Crypto Next, over in France. So yeah, there are multiple tools to help kind of fill in those gaps, and they still integrate with your existing technology. So you can use your existing tools, then use specific tooling to help fill in the gaps. And then if you really need to, like, do some one-offs and then maybe some forensics analysis. But the last two are more like rare scenarios.
You can't basically mitigate the risk of something that you don't know exists, and that's why the
Exactly.
discovery part is so important. But to the discovery piece too, I often get asked, hey, well, we'll just get a CBOM, which is a cryptographic bill of materials.
Could you talk a bit more about the CBOM? What's the point of
Yeah,
it?
the CBOM is a good artifact to ask from your supplier for a version of software, for instance. But it's kind of like a high school yearbook. It's your photo at that time. It doesn't necessarily reflect who you are today. I can guarantee you, I was a lot skinnier back then, as an example, and I looked a lot less gray hair. Um, but and that's the easiest way for me to explain it, right? It's a snapshot in time, whereas discovery really is a real time inventory and monitoring of that. A CBOM won't tell you if new cryptography has been introduced into your environment, whereas discovery will.
Yeah.
So if somebody plugs something into the network that, for instance, is running weak algorithms, or presents a risk, it's important to know that and to capture that and to be able to act on that. And that's where the more active approach to discovery
Hmm.
comes in, and being able to really understand what that is. So those two things are not necessarily interchangeable, and it's important for organizations to understand that difference.
Yeah, and to add on to that, like Chris was saying, it's a continuous thing, and so like continuous inventory is something that's of great importance. And what we see that quantum, the quantum security, quantum threat, right? It'll eventually turn into more of a cryptography management in a long term, right?
Yeah.
NIST themselves have said the current standards that were published last August will not be the last round of standards that will get added to that list, or
Yep.
that maybe those will get deprecated at some point. They'll have new ones, and they're already working on another round for of standards that will be added onto that list. And so companies need to be able to effectively change out that encryption in a
Hmm.
very relevant recent time frame. Like right now, this process has taken 5 years. Like I say 5 years in quotes, like because people are doing this. They have projections that, hey, we need to have this done by 2030, right? 2032, 2029, right? So
Yep.
5 year time frame is how long companies are trying to allot for this, right? But in reality, like with the combination of quantum computing and Gen AI, you don't know what type of algorithm may be created that could, break the NIST standards that
Yep.
were put out last August. And so that kind of leads to a recent surge in a technology called crypto agility.
Absolutely.
And that is basically exactly what it sounds, being able to be cryptographically agile. So being able to change out the current cryptography they're using now, and with maybe a couple clicks of a button, have it apply to a certain like group of like applications, servers, whatever, and have it tell, okay, go from, this algorithm to this algorithm, and boom, you're done, right? That all.
Absolutely.
And so what we're trying to tell clients, and I imagine you're doing the same, is being like, hey, while you guys are going through this process of upgrading all your cryptography and changing it out from old, or from like the classical to like the quantum safe algorithms, also go that extra step and put in crypto agility so you don't have to do this anymore in the future. And this is something NIST is also pushing as well.
Absolutely. They actually released a draft
Yeah.
to sort of add some definition to what their vision is. And a lot of that draft is practical, and a little bit of it is visionary,
Hmm.
and which is exactly what you want in good guidance, to be very honest with you. So I commend the group working on that, and Keyfactor's had a role with that. I think Accenture has
Yep.
been an active part of that group as well. But to emphasize your point, Andrew, because I think it's a very critical one, right? We've always traditionally, as organizations, treated cryptography as a commodity, right? It's
Hmm.
been a checkbox on an RFP. Do you support this? Do you support that?
Yeah.
Gets filed in a drawer, shredded 7 years later, because that's how long you have to do your record retention for. And nobody has actively managed cryptography really in most organizations. And what this change in algorithms is teaching us is that has created a tremendous amount of technical debt around cryptography. And we think in terms of everything is secure as a result of a cryptographic function. Why don't we actively manage that, right? We actively
Hmm.
manage our configurations on our desktops. We actively manage things on the server. We manage virus definitions and other things, and we search for malware, and we know actively what's going on there.
Yep.
It's time for cryptography really to become to be recognized as that critical asset within the organization, and this is very much starting to drive some of that change.
Completely agree.
Uh, to that, for organizations that are looking to take action and to implement a agile cryptographic process, as well as beginning to take those steps into implementing quantum into their future plan, what are the organizations and steps that you both recommend that they look at day one?
There's a lot you can do, a lot you can say for that one.
Yeah.
I think it really just circles back to your strategy that you developed, right? It's understanding where your highly sensitive data is, where it moves around throughout the organization, and when it leaves the organization. What applications handle that highly sensitive data, what infrastructure does. So basically, it all revolves around where your highly sensitive data goes that needs to be kept secure for, that longer than 5, 7 year time frame that your organization will determine as saying this is our Q day or our quantum day, right?
Yeah.
Each organization's like some will say 2030, some say 2029, some say 2032 for like that for when their Q day is. And so whenever that day is for your organization, you just need to take steps to prioritize. All right, the data needs to be kept for longer than that is what we need to prioritize enabling crypto agility, which will then allow you to use the post quantum algorithms or the quantum safe algorithms, right?
I'll and you're absolutely correct, Andrew. I'll take a slightly different point of view on it, because I think where a lot of organizations struggle is in realizing that this is not a technology only problem. There isn't a technology element to it, but it is also an organizational change. Every application and piece of infrastructure is impacted.
Yep.
What I see what I see organizations that are being successful already doing is having well-defined ownership of the problem,
Hmm.
having cross-functional buy-in, and including the different organizations, being able to put executive sponsorship behind it and budget, and being able to bring policy changes in large organizations to reflect the change that needs to happen along the timeline that it needs to happen. So I think in a lot of organizations still people are pointing their fingers at, for instance, the PKI person and saying, "Go fix
Yeah.
quantum."
Your problem, go
Um,
fix it. Yeah.
but it's not. It's actually a much bigger problem than that. So the inflection point for organizations that really are starting to be successful and are ahead of the curve and keeping their organizations most secure are those that have really taken those larger organizational pieces into account, and approached it as a business level problem, not just a technology implementation.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, one thing that we're recommending to clients is like standing up what's called a cryptographic center of excellence, right? That helps a lot of with what you're saying. It just makes it in like one singular like organization to have people from different groups of your organization all participate in that. So it gets pushed from the top down, right?
Yeah.
So people are all on the same page of what needs to happen because like we were talking about earlier. this quantum security issue will turn more into a cryptography management issue, which is, or it already is one, but it'll stay. It's not something that's going to change. So I
Yep,
think establishing a cryptographic center of excellence is also something that'll really help with that.
absolutely.
And as we close out our conversation today, do both of for folks or organizations that are looking to take those next steps, possibly delve a little bit deeper, are there any resources that both of you recommend that they look into or look further into for their particular needs?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier a couple that I strongly advocate on behalf, the PKI Consortium, just because I like the fact that it's community driven and not just pure membership fee driven. Yeah, and they have conferences and great mind share. Yeah, you want to learn how all the banks have done it. They speak at the conferences and share that, and they share the good, the bad, and the ugly. Which is really important.
For sure.
Yeah, the other one is like I mentioned before, we have our PQC lab off our Keyfactor website. Just figuring out how it's different, right? How the keys are different, how the sizes are different. Being able to do some rudimentary understanding and testing. There's also learning assets there. And then the other one is follow your friendly neighborhood LinkedIn leads and things like that. Lots of information being shared in public because it really. I alluded to it earlier. It's going to take a village. It's going to take an entire community. We're all working together. We might sometimes compete, because the timelines don't allow for anything but cooperation, and it's important to get it right because the risk is too great, not only for ourselves but for those who will walk in our footsteps in future.
Yeah, and for me, like kind of what I talked about earlier, the Isaac, your local Isaac, they have events everywhere around the world. So I think that's really relevant. And then like a little shameless plug here. For Accenture, we have a couple different things that can help with this. We have like a quantum security strategy compendium. This has like a whole bunch of best practices that we use to help help inform our clients on what they should be doing to become quantum secure, right? We have a vendor database, which we like, hey, this is what your needs are for tooling to do X, Y, and Z. We'll look at what we got. Oh, we found that this one is what ideally fits your needs. So to save you the time of going around and being like sending out an RFI to each vendor, be like, hey, these are our requirements. What do you do? Yes, yes, no. We save you that time. And then like the labs, which I manage, we bring in those products that we really see good prosperity for or good prospect for, test them out so that they're vetted by us at Accenture. So a little bit of a shameless plug, but those are some additional resources to help leverage.
Thank you both for joining me today. To close this out, uh, in a sentence or two, what is the most important thing you want anyone watching this today to walk away from our conversation with?
Start now.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do for your organization, start now, start making a strategy, start assembling your team, start assembling your Avengers, right, for making your organization quantum safe.
Yeah, I had exactly the same answer, without the Avengers reference, but I like that one. Yeah. If you're asking yourself, where do I start at this particular point in time, you're already a little bit behind, to be very frank. You're not too late to take action, but the biggest risk is waiting at this point in time to start because a lot of things are going to conspire to make that timeline incredibly more challenging the closer we get to that 2030 type of date. So get on it early and get started and get the buy-in that you need to get going.
Yeah, start now, rest later.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole.